everyone, welcome to Riff on This, candid conversations behind the music in Florida. And if you know anything about Florida or music, you know that this is a big old state and we have a ton of talent. But we're here for all of the juicy details and amazing stories flowing through all the genres here in the Sunshine State. I'm your host, Samara Kokinas, taking a break from the weather to catch a musical vibe with you. With a voice that transcends boundaries, combined with soaring melodies, her arias tell a story and have been leaving audiences around Orlando spellbound with every single performance. That's right, I got to sit down with an opera singer, but not just any opera singer. She's the Queen of Opera.
Known as the Queen of Opera, Pelletier.
Let's go behind the music with our own local luminary, Pelletier. With me today, I'm so excited. I have the Queen of Opera, Pelletier. Correct?
D'Andrea Pelletier.
I knew I was going to mess it up. I said it right a couple of times.
You got the last name right. So
I did. Okay, good. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I was so amazed when I saw your Instagram page because first of all, I just want to say you have an amazing voice. It is so powerful. It gave me chills watching your videos, but I was like, wow, she's really doing something different.
Thank you.
And then I spoke to you and I learned about you and I was like, she is different, and I love that so much. So tell me and tell everyone exactly what it is to you and what the Queen of Opera is to you. So since that's your title, that is you.
Yes, and I have to tell you, I love that title because after I decided upon Queen of Opera, I'm pretty sure there were a lot of people that went, why didn't I think of that? So much so that there were a few people that said that. But I mean, Queen of Opera to me is opera in every form, from modern opera, modern classical, to the traditional Puccini, Verdi. Everything about opera is about the emotion and however it comes out. You know, a lot of people think of the traditional cliche opera as, you know, a woman in a Viking hat, you know, and although there is some of that in composers like Wagner, there's so much beauty that unless you really explore it, you don't really get to experience it. And also, you have to experience it at least once in your life live. And so for me, opera is all immersive. It's not just the music, although the music is the primary thing about it. It's the emotion and the acting and the storytelling behind it. So much so that, at least for me, when I sing, I hope that people can hear what it is I'm trying to convey, even if you don't know the language. So, you know, we sing in a lot of different languages, but to me, it's really just understanding the emotion behind it based on my face and my voice and really relating in that way.
Well, I think people can relate to it, you know, but like you said, even if you don't understand what's being said,
right,
you can feel it. I mean, I literally get goosebumps just listening to your voice. It's so amazing and powerful. So your company, though, the Queen of Opera, what are you doing that? Because, I mean, it's not every day I get to sit down with an opera singer, number one, but a woman that owns her own business on top of that. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. We're doing something entirely different. You know, typically when you meet an opera singer, even today, they are going, and happily so, going from opera house or different venues, and they're singing different roles, concert operas, etc. And while I love that, and I invite that definitely, our route is a bit different. I own this company with my husband, Drew, and we both have this bigger vision of not just me as the solo artist, although right now that is what we do. We're in our budding stages. It's that we run the entire show. And I really like to run the show, not just be the performer, but run all aspects of it, from the musicians to the other singers, and bring in amazing talent and have something that's an all inclusive experience, not just the singing, but the dancing and the pageantry. So ultimately, that's what we want to do. When you see an opera company, yes, but more like an entertainment company with a focus on opera. When you see that people do things like that, that's more along the lines of what we want to do. So instead of being just the musician, I want to run the entire orchestra and the entirety of it, and see some magic happen with it.
Really living up to the title queen of opera.
Exactly.
I love that. I love that. It's like a powerful thing, and I think that that's wonderful. So when you're out and about, and you tell people that you do, what's their what's their first reaction? Because you are just stunningly beautiful. Your voice is amazing. If they haven't heard you, they're probably just like, wow, she's beautiful. And then they ask what you do, and you reply.
Well, I say I'm an opera singer, and many times, more often times than not, people will say, oh, hit a note. And for me, I've always been prepared for that. I know that there are a lot of people who don't like to do that, and they say, oh, don't put me on the spot. I'm like, put me on the spot. I'll sing at a moment's notice. And so that's typically the response. And then once they hear me, because I feel like I said, you have to hear it at least once in your life live, then I have a new fan. So it's always fun.
Yeah, and you never know, that person, like your husband wasn't necessarily into opera, right?
No, not at all.
So how did you get him to come out and say, hey, listen, we're going to do this company together?
Really and truly, it was him, because he likes to win in all things and make it big. And so for me, I'm more on the business side and of course also the musical side. But for him, when I say a concept like Queen of Opera, then he says, or I say opera, then he says, let's make it Queen of Opera. Let's make it big. Let's make it something that people remember. So with my business sense and also his business sense, but more of the pageantry of it for him, it just made for a great combination. And he was like, yes, let's do this. So he's always been very much on board.
I love that. You told me in our conversation a few weeks ago, you said, my husband actually knows a little more than I do.
Oh, a lot more than I do, which is really funny because I've been studying this. I went to school, for opera and classically trained and all of that. But it wasn't until he and I started to do this as the business that he would say, did you know Vivaldi wrote this many operas? And I'm like, Vivaldi wrote opera? This is earlier on. But he's telling me about the story behind all of these composers. So honestly, with him wanting to know every aspect of it and me wanting to sing it, it's such a great combination.
I think so too, because a lot of times, for married couples, it's trying to find that common ground where you usually say, hey, listen, I will go shopping with you, honey, if you will come and watch, hold this wrench for me in the garage or something, so to have that common bond. And for him to not even be in opera and just kind of blossom into this. Oh yeah. Y'all are a power couple.
Really, he's not even deterred by any of it. He's like, let's go, let's do what we have to do next. And he's really excited, as long as he doesn't sing. If he sings, I'm not too happy with it. And he's not going to like me saying that, because he loves to just belt out these opera notes, but he's not an opera singer. So I say, please stop. But everything else, all other aspects, please continue.
Right. Absolutely. Continue to make this grand.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, when they hear opera, they're thinking New York, LA, somewhere just like Italy and all these foreign places or grand places. But opera's right here in Orlando.
Yes, exactly. There's so much here in Orlando. And I just got here this summer, but I'm coming to realize how, as I started to take on more live performances since I've been here, how many people have come up and said, oh my goodness, this is so wonderful. Now, the good thing is it's not a surprise to hear it here, but it's very welcomed. People want to hear this. And I also think that the way that we do it, we make opera very relatable. Anytime I do a live performance, I do a storytelling. I explain what it is that I'm singing, whether it's in English or another language. Most of the time, it's in a lot of languages. And so one of the things that the most feedback that I get back from people is, thank you so much for conveying what it is you were saying. Although I could feel it, it gave me, a lot of people say it gave me even more of a sense of what you were saying, and I could really feel the emotion after you told the story. And so it's very accepted, and I love that so much for this area. But I've definitely received the feedback of we want more. So that's great.
That's wonderful. I love expanding through music. Music is a universal language. So like you mentioned, you have to usually you do the storytelling, which helps people really appreciate your performance. How many languages do you speak?
Oh, well, I speak Spanish, English. I'm working on Russian right now.
Oh, wow.
So I speak those languages, and I speak a little bit of Italian just by proxy because I've had to sing it so much in the last, 15, 20 years. But I sing in 12 different languages. I believe it's 12 now. So like when I was in Hawaii, took a few pieces on that were in Hawaiian. And then also, Portuguese, Italian, French, German, Polish. German was a huge one, and French in school. So we had to learn how to really not just speak it, but how to pronounce it, enunciate when we sing. So it was sort of ingrained in us, the German and the French. And there are so many little ones that I've done 2 or 3 pieces for as well. I say little, it's not little. It's not at all. You really have to take the language on. But I think I'm up to about 12 at this point. And yeah, they're all fun to do. I'll say the most fun language to sing in is, it's not Italian, although most people think it's Italian because a lot of opera singers sing Italian. It's actually in Russian. It's something about that, about the languages, the beauty of it is just, I just love where it sits in the voice when you sing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's interesting.
And that's not something I knew when I was in school until recently.
Well, I can tell you that's nothing that I knew at all. And I can appreciate it because I love experiencing different, I'm a very eclectic when it comes to music. So everything from the symphony, and I've got to come see you perform now.
Yes,
and
please do.
I will, trust me, you're going to have a huge fan in the crowd that night. And then, to every genre, it speaks differently to different people. But you mentioned you just came back this summer, but you are no stranger to Central Florida.
Oh, no. I studied at UCF. I graduated from UCF. That's where I did all of my vocal training initially, was UCF. So go Knights. And I actually
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
Go Knights.
Go Knights. And I just did the national anthem for a Baylor game as well. So yeah, I am a huge Knights fan, obviously, from being from there. But and then I have, let's see, we were here for about 13 years before we moved back over to Hawaii. My husband's from Hawaii, so we decided to go there for a little bit. And I think we went at a really good time. And we left this area, went over there for about 5 years. COVID hit, and that's actually what made me transition into recording music instead of just being a live performer. Most opera singers, that's really all they do. They do live performances, but because we were isolated on a little island, we had to go over there and try to figure out, well, how do we still get the music out? And so we learned how to record. We've put out 3 albums so far, and it has just been an amazing experience. And recording original new classical music too. So that was something that I didn't expect to do, and we did it, and I'm so excited for it.
So what has your, when you tell people that you've recorded now these albums, and what's the general feedback on that?
I find that most people, the general public, they go, oh, that's really nice, and then they hear it and they do enjoy it. But it's interesting. It's the industry, my industry, that goes, you did what? So they're always so surprised. Wait, you actually have music out, recorded music, on all these different streaming platforms. They're the ones that are the most surprised because, like I said, opera singers typically don't come out and produce their own music and, work with different composers on their own. And typically what they're doing is they're taking music from, Puccini, Verdi, Mozart, all of these older composers, which they're amazing. But they are just recreating, essentially opera covers of their music. But with us, we wanted to branch out with new modern classical composers. So I actually have 2 friends over in the UK, one in Wales and one in London, and they're the ones that I did my first original music with. I did a film score, and I did 2 original pieces, or 2 original albums with a buddy of mine in London. And they were all different languages. It was in French, it was in Russian, it was in Spanish. And so, Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. But that's what people are most surprised by. And also the fact that we're not doing just traditional opera.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I wouldn't have even thought about it, honestly, because it's not, like I said, you are very different and it's very unique. And I love that.
I take that as a compliment, really.
Yes, it's intended to be definitely a compliment. When people say, hey, listen, where can I find your music?
Mm-hmm. Everywhere. Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora.
Under the Queen of Opera?
Under the Queen of Opera. Okay. So I have some music released in my film score work and also my original piece under D'Andrea Pelletier. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it and most of it's under the Queen of Opera. So all you have to do is search Queen of Opera on any streaming platform and I'm there.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. All right, so I want to get into a little bit about what it is that you're really trying to do to really impact the scene of, the opera scene here, not only in Central Florida, but coming up in the new year. I know you've got a lot of really amazing plans coming.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just excited for my listening audience to hear about them so they can go and experience all the different things. Orlando's a melting pot, and I love that.
It really is. Yeah, and I think that's one of the driving forces behind how we're planning on doing our music and also writing original operas, but I'll get into that. So what we want people to experience, like I said, is not just what you think of traditional opera, but I mean, I'm taking influences, everything from Nirvana to Lana Del Rey to Celine Dion to Mariah Carey, all of these influences that I've had, and then taking into, the composers Beethoven, Mozart, Puccini, I love, Vivaldi, I love, and creating a sound that's unlike anything that anyone's heard before. The biggest thing is not that it won't be operatic. The music may be more cinematic, it may be more pop-based, more mainstream. Sometimes then there's like the full-on traditional classical, but at the end of the day it's about the voice always remaining classical. So for some songs you might have to subdue it, recorded performances, and being okay with that and not pushing just because you think this is what an opera singer should sound like. Instead saying, well, how do I make it beautiful but also still classical with the vibrato? And so we've always sort of taken that approach anytime we create music and also do live performances, that it's more about, again, how can the audience say, I know what she's feeling as she's singing it. I can relate to this experience and not like, oh, I'm expecting to hear a whole bunch of high notes the entire time. So it's more of an emotional experience, really. And everything from excitement, like for instance, I did a performance over in Avalon Park a few weeks ago, and the kids, I know I'm going to sing in front of these kids, and so it's more relatable to them that I sing something like upbeat and happy and laughing song, and they're dancing in the audience, they love that. But if I'm going to a different audience and they want something that's a little more subdued, I would pick something like Vivaldi, where it's elegant, it's classy, but it's not high notes,
right,
a whole lot of them.
You did an impromptu, I believe it was at the Citrus Club.
Oh, I did.
I saw that video. Girl, I'm telling you, I watched your videos. I was like, had I been sitting there eating my dinner, I probably would have stopped and just cried.
Oh,
because it was beautiful. It really was. But is that what you kind of read the room, so to speak?
Exactly. So for that one, basically, instead of being subdued, because it was a huge crowd and a lot of commotion, I picked two songs that I knew. One of them, for instance, was O mio babbino caro, and it has a few high notes, but not too many. It's not too shrieky. It's really beautiful, and it makes everyone just stop and say, what is that? And then Ave Maria, Schubert. Everyone knows Ave Maria. And so I sang that as well. But both of those songs were for that crowd. And so that's how we approach every production that we do. Although right now on a small scale, we're thinking in terms of being much bigger and grand, still in those settings have an intimate setting for one song and then one that's more grandiose and very laughy, and so it's just understanding our audience. But the feedback we receive is people want to feel it, they want to connect, and they want to have fun,
Right.
You don't want it to go on for too long. I have gone to operas, they're more traditional, where even me as an opera singer, I'm thinking there's a third act here, and so I don't want to sit there anymore. So we want it to be basically the modern version of what opera, I feel like, is evolving into with what we're doing.
Right. Right. Well, you're making memorable moments. You're
Yes.
making impacts in people. Like, you know how they say the core memory achieved or
Yes.
unlocked, you know, when you see a child interacting with their father or mother and they have that moment, and that's going to be forever moment.
Yes.
Is that what you're
Yes,
going?
always trying to make those moments for people. And the feedback that we've received has been exactly that. You know, people will come and say, I've never experienced something like this before, and I've heard other opera singers, or I've never heard anyone sing like you or is saying like this at all before. And it's something I'll remember for the rest of my life. I'm so, like in Hawaii, for instance, and here, but in Hawaii, everyone's on vacation. And they're like, you know, I got to bring my mom out here, and now she got to experience this, and she's always wanted to hear an opera singer, so thank you. So I know that it's something that those families will take away and say, wow, you know, this is something I'll never forget.
Well, you're making it very accessible for people who think otherwise, that they cannot go to an opera, or they can't, you know, they don't want to go.
Exactly.
They want to hear it,
Yeah.
but they don't necessarily want to sit, you know, dressed, and
Right.
they want to appreciate it in their own element.
See, and I think that's one of the other things is opera has always been seen as so exclusive. And although there are certain times where you want to feel like you're a part of that, at the same time, instead of making people come into us, what we're trying to do with our music is draw them in by going out where they are. So again, whether it's maybe a simple setting like a coffee shop or a restaurant, there have been times where we've done those, and then we have bigger venues too. So it's going where everyone is, not just where opera lovers are, where everyone is. And then from there, then they come to the bigger stages, you know, and they come see the bigger performances, which is good. But you said it right, exactly, making it more accessible. That's what we want to do.
Well, I think everybody and anybody listening should, at least, like you said, experience it once in your lifetime. Put it on your bucket list. Get dressed up. Go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's relatively affordable to attend an opera.
It is, actually, believe it or not. I mean, I was actually surprised when I started to see the prices when I was in school. I thought, okay, so if you go to an opera, you're thinking like hundreds of dollars for a ticket, when in fact, a lot of operas are like, they start at like $25 a ticket. It just depends on the venue that you're in.
Right.
And so, yeah, definitely making it more accessible in that sense is good. But I like making it more accessible in the sense of just the music. It just speaks to you, even if I can't tell you how many people have said, I never thought I'd like opera. Right. And I like opera now, so.
So tell me, I need to know these details, because I know that every artist has a favorite performance that they've done, or a place that they'll remember forever. What's your favorite opera house that you've ever performed in?
Well, to tell you the truth, I started in Hawaii with the Queen of Opera brand. So this was something very new at that time. So I've been doing it now for, let's see, about 4 years. And in that time, although I have performed in so many places, it's not so much an opera house that is my favorite, but the most memorable place that I have performed in was for the Rotary International in Oahu. And because it was so many people in front of me, and it was one of the first live performances that I had done.
Oh, wow.
And it was amazing because it was Rotarians from all over the world there. And you could tell, even though there were so many people, how affected they all were. And I got to sing, I think it was 2 times there. And the way that they responded to it was just like they had never had an opera singer perform, you know, for any of their things at that time in Honolulu. So that was the most memorable, I think, because it was one of my first ones. As far as an opera, I've done an operetta, and that was so much fun. It was called The Pirates of Penzance, and that was in Hawaii as well.
Okay.
And it was funny because
that's mentioned in, not to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
No.
That was mentioned in, what's the movie, Pretty Woman?
Oh, is it?
Yes. Pirates of Penzance.
Ah.
It's like when she's watching the opera and she gets up and she's just so like drawn to it. And then he says that because she
I remember that. As a matter of fact, and I also remember that they were doing La Traviata, if I'm not mistaken, in Pretty Woman. And what I find interesting is the moment I saw that live, La Traviata, that was one of those moments that I said, yes, I am doing this live. I remember I said, before I turn, you know, whatever age, I'm going to do my first full role as an opera singer. And I actually opened that night before my birthday. and debuted as Mabel. And so that was just such a memorable experience. I mean, like, that's just one of those things you don't forget. Yeah. So, yeah.
When you were going back to Honolulu, you said the Rotary, right? What kind of kind of paint the picture for what that setting was like that night? Because I'm not picturing it myself. I'm thinking to myself, was it like a banquet or what?
It was their annual district conference, and so basically they had, I don't know, maybe like, I can't even remember how many people in the room. At least 1,000 to 1,500. It was a very big conference room.
Oh, a conference room. Okay.
Yes. And so the first one was just the Star Spangled Banner. And still, though, it was performed operatically. And so I think they had never heard anyone sing it, classically. And so there was a huge silence. So basically in Hawaii, they do two things. They do the, is it Ho'opono? Hawaii Pono'i, that's what it's called. So they have their state anthem. And so someone did that. And then I did the national anthem. And by the time I was done, it just got super quiet. Oh, and I think I did O Canada as well, because their guest speaker was from Canada. And so it was an experience, I will say. And I remember it so vividly because it was one of my first, I want to say, back from being, in school, constantly training, to then as a professional coming out and doing that. It wasn't even an aria, it wasn't an opera initially, my first performance. But the floor was funny, or their jaws just dropped to the floor. And so then they said, can you come back a few days later and sing again? And so I did, and I did a Bellini piece, Casta Diva, it's Italian. And then it was like even more so. My husband was funny because I saw him kind of in the corner of my eye, and he's like, yes. And I said, why did you do that? After I got done singing, he said, because there were so many people crying. And I said, that. Oh, yeah, he was very excited. He's like, I find that the more people cry, the more responsive they are, and then you have new fans. So
that's true. Yeah. I mean, when you feel a certain emotion and you attach it to music, music can carry you back to anywhere. Yeah. It's like a time machine, and you don't even need a flux capacitor to do it. But it can just take you places. It can take you on vacation when you don't have time to take a vacation. So hearing that story from you and how it made you feel, and then how your husband saw the audience feel, that's an awesome memory.
Yeah, and he's seen it throughout the years. I was doing real estate before I went full time back into doing opera, and so every now and then I would do, because I was the opera realtor, I would do different performances. I'd go, and sing live, but it was never for the career aspect of it. It was just the enjoyment, and so it was always so unexpected by clients and colleagues, and the way that they all responded, it was different than the way people respond to real estate. You have a lot of real estate agents and you have excellent ones, but opera is something else entirely. And so the response of the people during live shows was what brought me back to do this. I remember we were in Hawaii and we had a real estate brokerage going here in Orlando remotely while we were living in Hawaii. And I did Handel's Messiah for Christmas. And there were so many people that came up to ask me, ask my husband, ask my kids, like, so you're the Queen of Opera, like Queen of Opera's daughter or what have you.
The princess.
And exactly. Yeah, I'm getting her to sing opera as well now. And they were all like, so what do you do? And at the time, again, I was in real estate. So I said, oh, I'm a real estate broker. I do real estate. And it just kind of went in one ear and out the other. And it didn't register. And they started to ask, why aren't you doing this full time? And I think that was one of those moments. And again, it was right before COVID, but it was one of those moments that we said, maybe it is just time to go back. I think I had always envisioned that I'd be doing opera eventually full time, but it was then that everything was pretty much aligned to do it. And everyone just kept saying, I can't believe that you do this here. I can't believe that you sing. There aren't a lot of people who sing classically here. And so I took advantage of where I was and said, this is what I'm going to do. And it worked out so perfectly. I had my first concert within 6 months, my first ticketed concert, and it was very fun. And I haven't looked back since.
I love that. Yeah. When you mentioned your children, you're getting both of your kids are singing,
yes,
correct?
They both sing. Yes.
Your poor husband, because he's not allowed to sing, right? You mentioned he likes to belt out these, but he's not trained. He's
does.
going to be the only one.
Oh, it doesn't stop him. He's not deterred. He still does it. No, and he's so much so that he's telling me how to train my daughter when I'm giving her voice lessons because I train her. And he's like, no, you have to tell her, do it like this. And so, no, he's very involved and he's not deterred by what I say. He's like, I'm going to sing anyway.
I'm going to do what I want because I'm going to.
Yeah.
Because I'm the king.
Basically, the king of opera.
Yeah.
Yes, but I trained them, and my son is extremely musical. My daughter is very musical as well, and they're both thriving doing the arts too. I always said I wasn't going to do that, and then I heard their voices and I saw their musicality, and I said, yeah, you guys are going to be the start of our orchestra because we are, eventually we're going to have our own orchestra. So I said, you two are first. They play the violin, they sing. So
wow, they're well-rounded young
yes.
individuals. I'm pretty sure we're going to see some amazing things because when you really kind of just nurture music, when you see something that your child obviously loves and has a passion for, then as you nurture it, you don't force it, you nurture it, it becomes something beautiful.
Exactly. I try not to push too much, but inside I'm like,
well,
this is so exciting. Yes, exactly. But I'm tough, so,
But you're like, this is so exciting because you see the development, and kids will forget where they've come from. So do you ever find that you try to show them, like, listen, do you remember this video? You couldn't do this, or have you done that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think they have their own moments. I think the fact that they've been able to see me by example, learning and progressing as well, as far as like all the languages that I've been learning and the different repertoire, I think that helps them to know there aren't any boundaries on how far this can take them. Anything can take them. But just having an example of they see that we're constantly learning new repertoire, my husband and I, to put on new shows, that in itself seems to really inspire them. They're so confident as a result. And that's huge for me. So, and then obviously they see their own performances, sure, but I think what really seems to get them focused and motivated is seeing that there are no boundaries on what we do with our company. And they're very much involved as well, too. Everything from the photo shoots that we do, they're helping to pick out all of the, the clothes and all of those things. So having them so involved seems to give them a sense of confidence in what they do as well, majorly.
Leading by example very well.
Thank
so
you.
That's wonderful. Where can people, of course, everybody's now probably trying to Google the Queen of Opera. We're going to make it easy for them. So tell them where they can find your pages on social media, as well as if you have a website yet. I don't remember. Okay, I thought so, but
absolutely.
I was like...
No, you can find me anywhere, queenofopera.com. I tried to make it simple, and that's actually one of the reasons why we branded this way initially. It's very easy to find when no one else has it. So queenofopera.com. Even if you Google Queen of Opera, there's a whole thing that comes up. So you find it everywhere. But Spotify, iTunes, Instagram, TikTok is at Queen of Opera. Instagram is at The Queen of Opera, and all the other ones are just Queen of Opera. So
Gotcha.
Yes, we made it super easy to find.
Yeah, I mean, it is easy to find because I'm not going to lie. I did Google you. I have to. It's part of my job.
It was all good things.
It is. It really is. And, thank you so much for taking the time to come and sit.
Thank you for
chat.
having me.
You said you were excited you got to talk and not have to sing. So,
yeah.
But, like I said, you are a gem. And I love that so much. I love that what you have going for the future, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Riff on This. Stay locked in tight. I'll have another episode coming to you soon. Thanks for listening to Riff on This, and a huge thank you to the Queen of Opera, Deandra Pelletier, for spending time with us. We really appreciate you. And be sure to follow her on all of her social media platforms by searching for the Queen of Opera. And don't forget, you can link me on my social media. Just search Samara Kokinas News 6 on Facebook, and on Instagram, search Samara Kokinas. Before we go, a huge thank you to our behind-the-scenes production team, Derek Mosier, Ryan Haley, Joe Grinnan, Philip Deems, and Bob Myers. Please take some time to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget, sharing is caring, so tell a friend about us too. You can find videos of all our podcast episodes on clickorlando.com/riff on this. Until next time, friends.